Okay, it's really good to be here and share a few insights and news about the Minesto journey towards making ocean energy truly commercial. I think it's fair to say today that Minesto is positioned as the #1 alternative in the world to really scale up and build out renewable energy production from resources in the ocean. We are also by far the highest valued company in the ocean energy sector in the world as a listed company, with a market cap of around 300 million euros today. So what is it that we're doing then? Well, we're flying kites underwater with a unique, heavily patented principle. I'm going to talk about that, not from the perspective that it's a cool technology, but from the perspective that it really expands a market and offers competitive energy to energy consumers. And then say a few words on the rollout of projects and scale-up systems as well. So what you see here is a drone footage of the system being towed out to its production site in the Faroe Islands in a place called Vestmannaeyjar. And for us, this is an important event from last winter where we tow it out to connect it to the grid for the first grid-generated tidal kite electricity in the world this winter. We could cover the background of the company extensively. I'll leave this as a reference for you a bit. We've been around since 2007 with about 60 employees spread over basically UK and Sweden. We are also the ocean energy, or actually the new renewable energy solution with the heaviest public investments in Europe, with support from the EU. So I guess all of you are investors in Minesto, whether you like it or not, via your taxes. Listed on First North since a few years back, had a good value journey there. 2 main owners that has been persistently supporting Minesto almost since the start, BGA Invest and Midrock New Technologies. And at the technology as such, it's a principle that we use that is based on advanced control system technology and a lightweight kite system that push a turbine through the ocean. The movement here is created, and the propulsion of the system is created by the lifting force of the wing. So we're basically sailing underwater with this machine attached to the seabed. And the reason why we're doing this is to sweep a large area with a very lightweight system. And when we sweep this area, we collect energy from a large cross-section, which means that we get a lot of forces to push this system into a high-speed trajectory. And that trajectory is the key to the high energy conversion performance, because the speed through the turbine is going to be significantly higher than the actual flow through the water. And that's the key here, because it's a cubic relationship between throughput and the speed through the turbine and how much energy you get out. So we beat all other marine energy solutions with a factor of 10 to 20 when it comes to weight. And we have a huge advantage when it comes to service maintenance operations, because we're tossing around something with a weight of a few tons instead of hundreds of tons. And of course, long term with manufacturing, scale up of manufacturing, having lightweight systems, low weight, that will also have good impact on your cost structure product wise. And perhaps the best advantage directly linked to the technology is that by sweeping this larger area and using this principle, we reach out into where the real natural resource is. So we claim a market that is far from a niche market. It's beyond the global potential installed today of nuclear. So we talk about 5-6% of all energy used on Earth that can come from this system. And that's related to this principle of sweeping a large area, which opens up all the low flow sites in all oceans around the world. So today we are generating electricity to our first customer in the Faroe Islands. It's still just a 100 kilowatt system, and it's not continuous electricity generation since installation in this winter. It's still a test program where we test different things, but we have long, steady electricity runs and are really happy with the energy conversion and electricity performance, and actually the behavior of the system in all its aspects. You can imagine to fly this tethered to the seabed with a tide that turns and with procedures to launch and recover it. We've been through a lot of development and work engineering-wise to safeguard a robust operation, and that is completely in place with the Minesto technology today. We need, with the system, we need a bottom joint and a subsea cable and onshore control stations as well. And from the shore end, it's now a close collaboration with the local utility funding the onshore grid work, and which they've done with a capacity beyond what we have here. So the site is also ready for expansion. A lot of components are, let's say, conventional systems and subsystems used in the wind sector and in the first generation Tidals with a nacelle, with turbines, with gearboxes, with sealing and bearing technologies from SKF, and then also a range of suppliers used to subsea applications in the offshore oil and gas sector. So the innovation is really novel and easy to patent, but most of the subsystems rely on robust existing technologies and components. We go after the big utility, the big parks and arrays, underwater array market, of course. That there are good sites in the Faroe Islands, in the UK, where we have our first sites under development, and of course there is also a market for power to X, for niche applications close to the ocean with all the blue economy stuff, and microgrids in remote locations. So we can combine those. The technology scales really well, and it's important for us to have the smaller scale units offered to customers, so that we also can get a lot of iterations and turnarounds to bring the cost structure down on, let's say, conventional learning curves. And the business model looks a little bit messy short term. That's a necessity to push the market forward, that we engage in what we can label market entry enabling activities, where we establish the early phases and the assets around sites and collaborative projects. Today, apart from SEV, we're also working with the French big utility EDF, and we are really happy with a strategic collaboration with Schneider Electric, where we're looking into basically all our existing projects to have them as the system integrator and technology advisor. Some of them, their role as project investor is also an opportunity with their alpha and beta project investment arms, primarily active in the US today. Of course, we can also see licensing opportunities for faraway markets that are difficult to reach. As you know, the energy sector is tightly linked to policy and government activities, which makes it good to target a few areas where licensing may be attractive. And then the core business, both short, medium term, is then of course to sell cell systems and associated services, spare parts. And we are actually now, let's say, in a phase of attracting and working together with project finance actors, basically for the two first sites in the Faroe Islands and in North Wales. So this is sort of an ongoing focus area for Minesto at the moment. Move on into a little bit more of a general perspective of what we're doing. The number one driver in this sector is the cost of energy, to get your project levelized cost of energy to reasonable levels. We're still in a pre-bankable phase, if we may use that word, which means that we're not accessing the large capital streams from the big pension funds and that type of funding yet. But you can imagine the macro trends and the interest in being a first mover and the synergies with offshore wind makes it really interesting to engage with project financing actors today. And we also start our journey at a significantly lower cost level than the two dominant renewable energies technologies did with solar PV and wind and offshore wind, which means that we have an interesting learning journey ahead of us to climb. And our claim is pretty straightforward. We will outperform offshore wind cost-wise from an LCOE perspective significantly quicker than offshore wind has reached its current position. So we're talking about less than 100 megawatts installed to be in level with offshore wind LCOE cost levels. And this is, of course, a bold statement in the phase we are, but there are generic cost drivers that makes it possible for us to claim this. The energy conversion performance, which is proven, the lightweight systems, and the really clever towing-based launch and recovery service concept that we have. So this, of course, the technologies placed here in relationship to our volumes will also move towards the right cost-wise. But it's an important reminder that those technologies have been significantly above 200 euros per megawatt hour in their early commercial phases. So I must say, when you talk to industry actors from the ocean energy side, a lot of actors would say that they are really concerned with getting large-scale deployments out. They are asking governments for huge subsidies. We don't have to play that game that aggressively or rely on that to the same extent. Of course, we will benefit from those systems where they are in place and where they will be put in place, but we don't have to lead in that. We can focus more on the commercial side of what we're doing. So this is of course important. Another aspect of customer value is of course related to our role in being complementary and balancing the renewable energy mix as we move towards a net zero energy system globally. And obviously it's a perfect match to have something that is 100% plannable and predictable as tidal, and then of course also ocean current based natural resources that we use. And we all know that there are volatility and there are crises behind us when the penetration of renewables is high in an energy market, and when the demand rises, for instance, in winter time, or when the wind is not blowing, we see that we end up with a situation where complementary generation and or massive long-term storage will be needed. And the storage aspect, I mean, we all have to believe that that storage soon, or at least within some kind of reasonable future, will be available as a complement to support the transition towards 100% renewable systems, to the net zero. But it's still very expensive, and you can compare this situation with, for instance, offshore wind and large long-term storage, and the total cost of that compared to tidal generation and a very small aspect of short-term storage, and then you will see that we are already competitive. So any energy market with a high level of penetration of wind and solar will definitely already today benefit from Minesto's deep green technology as a complementary source. Where we are in the Faroe Islands, there is actually already a policy decision made since a few years back to go all in, to be net zero by 2030. And that's the reason why they, as a utility, sort of support and do supporting investments in infrastructure together with Minesto to add tidal energy to their energy mix. Because instead of building huge dams for pump storage, they build generation and can accept a price level for the electricity that is higher than for the wind. Of course, their second largest income is from tourism. So bombarding those islands with wind towers is also not an option. So there are several, let's say, areas of value that makes this a sensible entry market for Minesto. It's actually also that you may think Faroe Islands, 50,000 people, 70,000 sheep. What kind of market is that? But for us as a pre-revenue company, stepping into a market where 100 megawatts installed capacity is a clear need, is a very good start for us with 100 million euros in sales associated with the Faroe Islands. But it's not only SEV and Faroe Islands for us. Of course, we work in parallel with local governments, with local partners to expand this. Our strongest collaboration is with the government in Wales, strongest financially, where we also have support on large-scale grid connections. We have a site consented in a first phase, environmental permits and leasing agreements in place. That's going to be a really interesting journey with UK now outside the EU, with, let's say, parallel support systems emerging. UK is the strongest tidal market per capita almost in the world. The industry started there. They have a supply chain in place for many critical areas. So this is going to mean a lot for us. France, that's the remaining largest market within the EU, where we have a strategic collaboration with EDF on doing a joint test at their site in Brittany, in France. Their interest is very much associated with all the French former colonies where EDF is active, where they have to sell electricity at the same price as they sell it in Paris. So all those islands across the world, they will need more competitive energy than diesel, and definitely more clean energy. So that's sort of the immediate next step with EDF. Then we look into ocean current sites. We have first agreements in place with actors both in Florida and Taiwan, where we have strong and 24/7 continuous ocean currents to harvest energy from. And that is also something being done in parallel, and that will take the LCOE competitiveness even further, because we talk about continuous currents. The tides, of course, turn with a standstill every 6th hour, which means that the capacity factor comparatively will be lower there than for ocean currents. We will keep adding opportunities to this map of potential projects and delivery context for us. But this is more than enough to take us into the first phase of large project build out. The reason why we're looking into expansions is because of local opportunities when it comes to both subsidies, higher prices, and that our partners may be interested in it. And then I'm talking particularly about Schneider Electric, which they of course have a global reach in that respect. So a few comments on the Faroe Islands have already been made. I hope you can see at least with some reasonable quality the footage, the video drone footage from the Faroe Islands. This is footage from the launch and recovery procedure. Absolutely critical in marine energy that you have small scale work vessels. You don't have to do offshore lifting. And as you can see, we tow the system out. We use the control system to maneuver it. And then we actually use the tide to sail it down into its location. No expensive ROVs, no divers. The only lifting is a small crane on the quay side. So the lifting is done there, and then it's a submerged operation. Extremely important that this is working like clockwork for us. Also that we are able to search intellectual property patents for those procedures. A third of the cost structure of generating electricity offshore is related to the marine operations, and that is for mature technologies. So you can also imagine what an enormous risk reduction this is for us in the early, less stable phase of build out. So if you look at LCOE calculations from other marine energy solutions, we can talk about 5-year service interventions for them that is necessary, because if they touch the systems, the LCOE calculation will just, blow up. It's not going to work. But we talk about 2 interventions a year, 1 planned and 1 unplanned. And we get away with the lowest predicted LCOE in the industry by far. And that means then 10 times more service interventions. That may be a scenario for the short term. There's nothing inherently in this that gives us shorter service intervals technology-wise, but that's just to show you how important and how competitive the system is in that respect. Lightweight systems, 5-meter wings here with a small 1.5-meter turbine, around a couple of tons in weight. So you can see the nice view behind it here from Vestmanna at the quayside. A few comments before we wrap up here on the collaboration with Schneider. It's with their power and grid segment that this agreement is made, and the purpose of this collaboration, Schneider has selected Minesto as their exclusive partner in the marine energy sphere. And what we aim to do together is really to accelerate the commercialization of marine energy together. They are world leaders in microgrids. They are in all relevant markets for us to offer system integration and other types of support and local presence. It's also a technology, not just business, it's also technology integration and collaboration work that we're doing together. So I think to summarize this, we work to deliver in the project portfolio we have. There are commitments to soft funding actors and to customers to get into a continuous electricity production in the Faroe Islands and start invoicing on the existing PPA we have there. We've generated on that PPA, but still just on symbolic levels. So that's perhaps the most important short-term goal for the summer. We're working on scale up of the systems. The next natural scale for us is a system above 1 megawatt in capacity. It's now in build, and it will be commissioned in Holyhead Deep at our site in Wales. Really good to have substantial funding on both hardware development and marine operation commissions with that. And that's also the system that will go into the first 2 10 megawatt commercial farms that's in the pipeline. And the view behind the text here is the fjord in the Faroe Islands that we are developing. Of course, then it's expansion with project financing actors, with new projects, and the manufacturing of what we're doing moving into the future. And I think with that, I would welcome questions and comments from you.
Thank you.
So back to you, Carl.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation, Martin. Really interesting technology to see here. So if you have any questions for Martin here, just use the raise your hand function as Raoul here already has done. So I'm just leaving the stage here. Raoul, please unmute.
This is not wave energy. This is ocean currents and tidal energy. The problem that you're referring to is exclusive for trying to convert the potential energy and the kinetic energy in waves. If you look at the world oceans, the linear kinetic energy from tidal currents and ocean currents are massive and much, much easier to convert into electricity because it's a linear flow. So our only challenge, since we're submerged below 20 meters from surface when we fly, it's even a typhoon-proof system. So we will keep generating under typhoon conditions in Taiwan with the system. And this is extremely important because waves are as wind. You can't plan for it either. The tides 10,000 years ahead, you can put it on your clock when you're going to generate. Ocean currents are continuous 24/7 generation. So it's like the wind blowing at the perfect speed continuously year round. So this is in that sense a game changer. And there are 150 projects and companies active in trying to convert tidal and ocean current streams today, but only one kite-based system. The rest of them use, let's say, submerged windmills with a lot of problems associated with. We've been testing smaller scale units for the last 6 years in a natural reserve in Northern Ireland without a single incident or a single even near miss. Mammals such as harbor porpoise, tumlare in Swedish, seals, diving birds, they all stay clear of this when it's in operation. They can swim above it, they can swim below it. And the low noise it's making and it's and sort of the sound from the movements are more than enough for those animals to avoid it. But this is a serious question that needs continuous monitoring and collaboration. I think we've been working with 5 universities and 4 to 5 government agencies on this over the years. There may be creatures in the oceans that will cause problems in the future, but not in the areas where we are today. We've been a technology developers for the first 10 years of development, so it's a matter of whether we are perceived as a bankable option or not. So the time of continuous production in water and the shared technical performance and production is still early. So I'd say the reason why EDF want to run a joint demonstration is that they want to get to know the technology in depth. So I'd say this year is what we need to have enough, let's say, solid performance and grid connected electricity production in place to move into the serious project financing discussions.
So just getting back to the question Roel had here earlier on what's needed to actually commercialize the product here. I would be really interested in just one note, hearing something about the pipeline going forward on the outlook on that, and also just like on if you have all the technology for ramping up, for example, the 250 kilowatt kite already.
Well, the 1.2 megawatt kite, I think, is what we're talking about here. So it's a unit actually larger than the first generation of commercial wind with that capacity. It's in build, so we're rebuilding it, and it's a technology that scales really well, which means that what we have proven, what we run now in with a 5-meter wing, is going to be scaled up to a 12-meter wing. So it's fairly twice the physical size, but it's also a unit that has to withstand significantly larger forces because it's 10 times the scale. But this is something we've done before, the scale-up exercise, and we are very well positioned to deliver within the commitments we have to commission this next summer in Wales.
Perfect. I mean, you kind of touched on this earlier here, but you said that you've been a research company for quite some time here. But 2020, I must say, was an exciting year since you actually connected to the grid for the first time, right, in the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the 100 kilowatt production there.
Yeah.
But I saw on the slide there that you had, it said 2 times 100 kilowatt. So is it running on 50% or is it just the one operating right now?
So far we have 2 systems operational. So we have two kites that we can exchange, and when we inspect and upgrade one, then we're using the other one. So it's good for redundancy purposes. But we're also building a second platform, second foundation and grid connection. And I'd say I guess that this is also just the first phase of expansion. It's a really good site, so looking into further build out there is quite clever for us. But there will be two units in parallel production. We've not set a timeline for that since we have deliverables to EDF and other parts of the world in parallel. But it's in the making.
Perfect. I mean, this puts us very elegant to the next question, which is on servicing. So I just had a few questions. You mentioned that the lightweight of the kite is a good thing in terms of servicing, but could you just briefly comment on the servicing costs and the intervals of servicing for this kite?
Yes, the full-blown service maintenance strategy is not set for a 10 megawatt array looking into the future, but there will be an optimum life length of certain components, because if we make them too robust to stay alive for too long, they may also hinder the water flow. It could, for instance, be it could be the size of actuators for rudders, or it could be the sheer width and the bulkiness of the wing. But that's by choice that you design, and then we talk about maybe you can exchange that every 5th year or so. Then there will be cleaning needed. It's a high-speed thing, so it's like having a speedboat instead of a slow old boat. If you live on the west coast or in Denmark, you will know that you need to paint the boat with a certain paint. But if you have a speedboat, it's much easier because it will clean itself. So cleaning is perhaps something you do every 2nd year. Then there are some lubricants that may need to be swapped out, also perhaps every 2nd or 3rd year, if you look into that. But there are no other, let's say, needed or planned service interventions that we need to introduce into the models. So let's say a 3 to 5 year service interval is sort of a reasonable aim, but we are, I think, humble enough to say that we need to be able to access the systems much more frequently in the first phase of installation. That's why we built a system where we can allow for at least 2 service interventions a year. I think there are three things to point out. One thing is that this is a hydrodynamically optimized entity or system where you carefully have to be able to harvest the energy by really capturing the energy in the flow, and at the same time you don't want to introduce friction and resistance in the water. And those two components can be contradictory and needs an optimization dimension. And to add to the hydrodynamic invention aspect of it is then, of course, that we need to be able to turn in the trajectories. So rudders will change the hydrodynamic properties around it. And another aspect of hydrodynamics is then the rotor, the turbine itself, that has a unique application since it's a turbine that is moving and is a part of the hydrodynamic system at a larger scale. So this system level innovation of shaping it is extremely important. And this is also why we have today a computational fluid dynamics team that is, in computational perspectives, it's larger than what Volvo had 10 years ago. And significantly cheaper because computational power is almost for free now. So that's one area, the high system level. The other one would be the control system. The control hardware and software that brings signals of water depth and pressure in and keeps it in an optimal trajectory, and also manage the different phases of installation, emergency stop, park mode, change of turns. So this software is really, really important. And I'd say the third aspect would be the only subsystem that is truly unique for this, and that is the tether system, the tether and the anchoring system, which is then optimized to withstand 200 tons of forces for a megawatt unit, to take as little resistance as possible, and also to convey the electricity and allow for the marine operations to be cost effective. So system level hydrodynamics, control system, software, hardware, and then the tether system to anchor it. Here you have 3 really unique and cleverly designed aspects of it, also heavily protected. Yeah, the basic principles of performance in energy conversion by using those principles are sort of deducted from the initial invention within Saab. But all aspects of today's design is something that is should be attributed to the technical team of Minesto. Yeah, we have 11 patent families. So we started early on with a really solid and ambitious protection strategy, and the core patent is extended as last as 2020. The original one is from 2006, and that one is extended with some clever additions on the principle of flying like this. Then there are another additional 10 patent families protecting the tether, launch and recovery operational procedures, and then some other aspects of the technology and subsystems. So that's an area where we are extremely strong.
Perfect. So we also mentioned the ETF 100 kilowatt facility that was gonna be planned here for this year, I think.
Exactly. It's the system will actually be commissioned. It's already in the making, and the first commissioning will be made at the test site in Faroe Islands, and then we will move this into the EDF site during next year.
Okay, so just for general timeline, when do you think you will be ready to just ramp up the kilowatts and going up to maybe the 3 megawatts at some point?
Well, the first step is the 1 megawatt unit, and that is now in the early phase of production.
Okay.
So it will be ready next summer, and the scale up to beyond 1 megawatt and up towards. I mean, we're looking into simulation wise into 3 megawatt units, but the logic of bigger means cheaper is not as obvious for us as it is with the wind sector. I mean, for them, the sky is the limit. For us, the sea level is the limit. So that's one different parameter, and the accessibility and serviceability of what we have is really clever with floating it. So I'd say the 3 megawatt units will potentially be put in the waters of Florida and the Green Island in Taiwan, where we have more water depth and slower currents to build, really large machines. To give it another 2 to 3 years to have a machine significantly beyond 1 megawatt produced.
Perfect. I mean, going from 100 kilowatts to 1 megawatt, that's a big step in R&D anyway. So looking forward to next summer then. And just a final question then, because we're actually running out of time here. In terms of reliability, I mean, a problem with solar energy, for example, is that you only generate energy once there's sun. How does it look with your product on the reliability side?
I mean, it's fully predictable because the time, it runs on time schedules, 10,000 years into the future. So you can plan your production with a small hourly long energy storage capacity. You turn it into continuous base load, not just sort of base load characteristics for Tidal. I think that's extremely important also for the microgrid contexts. And then the ocean currents are 24/7 continuous. Some seasonal variations, yes, but it's really a source that you can rely on always.
Thank you very much. It's been really great hearing you tell you about this idea here, Martin. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to see the projects taking form here this year and a big one next summer then.
Yeah, thank you. It's never been more fun to be involved with Minesto than it is today, actually. So I'll hope to see you again.
Was the grid connection, right? I mean,
exactly
taking form here.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, and thank you to all the clients here also. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.